about 4 o'clock on Monday, August 10, and we'll call to order our Board of Directors meeting for the Holland Board of Public Works. Janet, can we have a roll call, please?
Thompson.
Here.
Maloof.
Here.
Lilly.
Here.
Lynn.
Here.
Engers.
Here.
Corbin.
Here.
Couch. Van Beek.
Here.
We have a quorum. Would the board like to take action on the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Baloo, second by Lilly. Any further discussion on the agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is passed. We'll open our meeting up now to communications from the audience. We provide an opportunity for anybody who would like to address the board, requesting that you state your name and address for the record and adhere to a 5-minute speaking limit. Any communications from the audience today? Hearing none, we'll close communications from the audience and turn it over to the general manager.
Welcome, everybody. Nice to see all of you. Good afternoon. On the consent agenda this afternoon, there are 6 items for your consideration. We'll start with item 4A, which is a request to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the July 13 regular meeting and the study session of July 27. Item 4B is a request to approve 3 easements pending approvals to form by the city attorney's office, which would allow secondary electric infrastructure from the street to the backyard pole line associated with the Pine Bay Avenue area. Item 4C is a request to approve a contract with Parkway Electric pending approvals to form by the city attorney's office in the amount of $445,125 plus a 10% contract contingency. These are for services to install standby generation at the water treatment plant low service station. Comes along with a request to approve a transfer to the, or amendment rather, to the fiscal 27 capital budget to increase that budget from $800,000 to $950,000 to cover the additional project costs that have been uncovered as we go through that bidding process. Item 4D is a request for a capital budget amendment for unplanned infrastructure replacements associated with the water distribution capital budget. It's a request to increase that particular line item from $75,000 or by $75,000 rather to cover the cost of a 24-inch valve replacement that was unforeseen. Item 4E is a request for a declaration of surplus material to be declared for the items that are attached. There is some write-up in there relative to the Holland City Fiber project that you probably saw that had to deal with pivot from the early high-end engineering associated with our owner's engineer contract to what was actually finally designed when we entered into contract with EX2 for the actual construction of the Holland City Fiber network, which made some materials not needed for our system here. And then finally, item 4F is a request for an easement with Denoyer Chevrolet, and that would be to approve a grant of public utility easement from Robert Denoyer Chevrolet, pending city attorney approval, in order to complete a connection between the water distribution and water transmission lines at 8th Street and US 31. So those are the 6 items that are on the consent agenda this afternoon.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, on the low service pump situation, this is a generator to
Yes.
be placed there,
Yes.
as opposed to just bringing additional power to that location?
It's actually for backup in the case of a loss of power. There is, and I know Nate is here and can help me out probably with this as well. I believe the write-up indicated there's a natural gas fired device there that we would not need to replace. So this is an alternative from a reliability perspective underneath the drinking water standards from a continuity of service perspective.
There's a capacity issue too, I think, right? The gas can only
Yeah, the
provide-
existing, what we have there is a natural gas fired engine that operates 1 pump currently, which isn't enough for an average day capacity anymore. So the generator will be able to power 3 of those pumps now that are located there. So much more than an average day and almost a peak day at that.
And the generators that we historically put in, the gas generators that are up on the main part of the site, they're not capable of providing this power.
Correct.
Too
Yeah.
far away.
Separate system, separate power feeds going. down there.
But our hope is, again, unlike the other ones, which are also this time of year especially available for a peak shaving purpose, these would be more strictly just kind of a standby backup situation. Yeah.
Dave, a couple of years ago, you pointed out to us that facility is not in the BPW's electric generation.
That's correct.
It's in, and is that a factor? I mean, if it were, would there be any other considerations available to us?
I don't know that there'd be other considerations available to us. I mean, we might choose to co-locate power generation, on site that serves more than that site potentially. But we would probably take a very similar approach to reliability in the fact that we wouldn't have to take a piece that's pretty obsolete and continue to try to figure out how to keep a natural gas pump running. We probably would take a similar sort of approach with it. Obviously our rates are less here, but also our reliability tends to be higher. But still, this is not to say we never have outages, and I think for the preservation of the ability to continue to have that process working through the water plant, we probably would have a very similar approach to reliability enhancements there.
For somebody who lives out in that area, you're infinitely more reliable. That's why we have a generator.
Thank you.
The maintenance and operation of this pump as opposed to the natural gas pump, about the same, or will we be increasing the cost of normal maintenance on it?
No, it should be pretty similar. It's we do annual maintenance at least on our engines just to make sure they're ready to go anytime. So it's really not any different from that standpoint.
If I remember from the prior discussion, this is a pump that has an electric motor on one side and a gas motor on the other.
Right.
So you just basically remove the gas motor.
Yep.
And the pump is still totally functional on the power side.
Exactly. Yep. At this point, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to demolish that gas engine out of there and keep the electric side available.
Great.
Would the board like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
I would like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda items as written.
Support.
Motion by Lilly, supported by Maloof. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda items are passed. Major project updates?
Yeah, so they're attached here, but also again, we make those available ahead of time. Just want to point out maybe a couple things here real quick. If you scroll down a little bit, we've got the first one, I think, is the 8th and Waverly. Maybe Brian could give a little bit of an update of where we are on that construction, because I know that's probably of a lot of our projects around town. That's one of the more disruptive areas right now, disrupted areas of town with that critical intersection. So why don't you go ahead and give an update if anybody's watching at home.
Yep. Nope. So we did actually just talk with our project manager about that. So right now they are doing the last of tie-ins for the intersection. Those will be wrapped up this week. And then we're looking at basically the next 2 weeks for them to finish building the road, because they have to continue building road down Waverly south of 8th. And then they also need to work with the city's resurfacing project, which will go from Chicago through 16th for resurfacing. So that intersection is planned to be opened back up the first week of September as of right now. And then our project will move from there to 8th, between 31 and 8th, and then they'll hop the intersection to finish it up between 8th and Pawpaw. So tentatively, Waverly's still closed through the end of the month. And then Waverly will be open back up with 8th to be closed to finish that project up. And this information is all posted on our website, and we will update that as it changes.
Thank you. There's no other questions for Brian there. The unit number 7 major inspection, also want to note, and Grant is here as well, that this is something that the staff has been working with the contractor that just finished the unit number 7 major earlier this year. When we brought the unit up, we had some problems with regard to the startup sequence and having enough power to actually get to full speed, no load underneath the gas firing conditions at that point, before the unit would sort of trip out on a normal temperature temperature-related issue. And so it appears that there's some combustion path flow issues that are going on there that the contractor has acknowledged those things, and they're working on a plan which is supposed to be in place by today, but I don't know. I didn't want to put you on the spot. I don't know if it's exactly, if you've got an update here or not, but.
Unfortunately, we don't have an update from the contractor on next steps to take care of the lost megawatt output of the unit. We have made improvements and were able to successfully start up the unit last week. So we're going to do a full test of that, get it up to base load tomorrow, and make sure that that wasn't just a one-off. So the startup issues, it looks like it was unfortunately a perfect mix of maybe some of the issues caused by the contractor as well as some other equipment just failing at the same time. But we made some adjustments, replaced some parts, and so like I said, the unit should be available after another test run tomorrow.
Which we do have another hot week going on out there, and we've gotten some indications from the grid again that there's some combination of forced outages and high temperature. This week could be a challenging week, especially tomorrow, I think, is one of those days that's kind of out there as being a potential hot day for the grid. So working to trying to have as much of our power generation available to serve that as we can. So if there are any other questions about any other projects up there, we'd be happy to answer it, but I just want to highlight those two at least today.
I could just ask the gas path issue. Is it functionally equipment type issues, or is it something you can do to control something? I'm not sure what that means.
Right now, it appears it's a component issue inside the turbine. And so the contractor has been working to basically build a computer model to model the airflow through it and maybe identify the problem points and some things we could do to improve it. So,
yeah, if I can get to a little finer point on it, I mean, and Grant, please correct me, but we did a conscious effort to replace a certain set of blades in one of the rows of the turbine this time, and the cooling holes that are associated with that are a little bit more cooling than what the previous blade pattern had, and so we are concerned that maybe some compressor discharge pressure is being lost through this additional aperture that's in these blades, and so it's preventing some of the other capability from a firing amount of load to the turbine to reach the amount of proper speed at the proper time. And so we think that there may be a little bit of something going on there where potentially putting restrictions on the lines feeding those blades might be something that actually allows that to create enough pressure, back pressure into the compressor to get that done. So we're working with the contractor on some of those things.
So that helps from a standpoint. It's things that we did to address other issues.
Correct.
That now affect how the performance is of the unit, but you're looking to model it so that you can
solve that.
Overcome that.
Correct.
Thank you.
No other questions? Go into regular agenda items.
All right, great. First item on the regular agenda is, I think, Grant coming up here to talk a little bit about combustion turbine generator B inspection. And this has to do with some concerns that we've gotten from Siemens on some various parts there and kind of a long lead time item that this involves. So I'll let you get into a lot more detail about this, Grant.
Thanks, Dave. Good afternoon, board members. Yeah, a couple years ago now, we got the service bulletin from Siemens identifying turbine disc 2 being susceptible. They had to some additional damage than maybe they were expecting when the units went into service based on higher than expected temperatures within that range of region of the turbine.
And if I can just put, again, a disc here, just so you know, get a visual. You've seen probably the cutaways of the turbine before where there's these row of blades that are there, right? These buckets. The disc is what actually the buckets fit into. So the buckets, you can replace buckets. They'll go into a ring essentially that rides on the rotor and goes around, and that's the disc essentially.
The turbine rotor itself is not one solid piece. It's 3 of these rings or discs bolted together, and so it's that second disc in that assembly that is seeing higher than expected temperatures. And so based on those higher temperatures and run hours, Siemens was seeing more damage than expected.
And so the service bulletin came out, and it appeared that they were seeing some blade liberation in other units, so making us aware of the situation. And as a means to their response to this was kind of twofold. One was creating an inspection you can do on that turbine disc whenever it is taken out of the unit to help try to identify these points of failure to see if you are at risk of blade liberation. Blade liberation being where the blade breaks off of the turbine.
I love the creative English. Liberation.
Yes,
Sounds a
yes.
lot more fun than it is.
It doesn't sound that bad, does it?
It does.
Yeah, yes.
I was thinking more like thrashing.
I
Yes,
thought that was the most
Broken
creative
free.
wording.
yes, yeah.
So,
So yeah, the inspection's looking at that blade disc, that turbine disc, to see if it's susceptible to blade liberation. They've also created probability calculation going into that to help owners like ourselves understand if we're at risk of failing that inspection. Again, looking at temperatures inside that region of the turbine, as well as run hours, and then part two is component improvement. So they also came out with some different bulletins offering not only replacement turbine disc, but also new and improved cooling and sealing components. That's on the region just before the turbine disc. So if you're to cut it away, it's kind of where that first row and second row kind of meet. There's different seals and cooling rings you can replace in there to try to make sure that air stays in the right path. You don't get those higher temperatures than expected. So, so we got those service bulletins. Earlier this year, we were notified by Siemens that our unit 10 unit had a probability of not passing that inspection of 25%. Unit 11 had a probability of 60% of not passing that inspection. So that's not a probability of failure. That's a probability that you just don't pass that inspection, which puts you at a higher risk of the blade liberation. And so with that probability of failed inspection being known, and if you do fail in that inspection, the recommendation for Siemens is to replace the turbine disc. We started talking to them about what that would cost, what the lead times are, and very quickly found out that turbine disc 2 lead times had grown up to 85 weeks.
Yeah.
And the next opportunity we have in our planned schedule to replace this would be next October, which is much shorter than 85 weeks. So we just continued that conversation, and thankfully Siemens was able to identify an available turbine disc somewhere in their manufacturing process that would be available to us prior to this outage next October if we got them a PO in a time, PO by next month. So that's why we're trying to move on this at an accelerated rate. This recommendation is to go ahead and purchase at least the one turbine disc for Unit 11, seeing that it's at a high risk of failing that inspection. Also in this recommendation is we want to purchase the additional cooling and sealing components that we'll put on both units regardless if that turbine disc gets replaced, because even on an original turbine disc, those components will help the longevity of that disc going forward. So the quote that being from Siemens was $1,673.95. $1,673,956. A little over 1.33 million of that being from the turbine disc 2. So the remaining 300 and some being the additional cooling and sealing components. We're requesting a budget amendment of $2 million for the fiscal year to cover this, as well as there's some other improvements we've been discussing with Siemens that we might have to purchase ahead of that time as well. So, but because we don't know exactly what those are and costs for those, we went with that. So.
and obviously if there were to be something that would either require us to not run because of a failed inspection
Yes.
or run differently because of a failed inspection, or if there was an event, that caused some catastrophic damage, and now you're into procuring on that 85-week lead time. Obviously you have not only the damage issue, but you also have, the accreditation from a capacity standpoint in MISO, as well as the advantaged energy costs that we have in running Holland Park as opposed to buying from the market. That quickly makes up for any sort of cost here, and frankly we'd be far way ahead, by going ahead and making this purchase and making sure that we're in good shape.
Could we have a motion to make this capital budget amendment and purchase this part and components?
Motion to approve the recommendation as stated for the combustion turbine generator B inspection improvements.
Support.
It's a motion by Malou, supported by Lynn. Any further discussion?
Just a quick question, BJ. Dave, with on all this type of stuff with the extended lead times, are we looking at from a risk management standpoint, just proactively going out and buying certain things that are outside of the window of being able to know, hey, if something goes wrong and you're 85 weeks out?
Yeah, I mean, in this particular case, again, with the lower probability of failure of the inspection, we didn't think it prudent at this point to go ahead and spend another $1.7 million. But the one, and it could be one with a higher probability passes and the other one actually fails. But we thought about kind of hedging our situation here a little bit by going ahead and going ahead and getting at least one of those at this point. The other thing is, it's hard to know until you get some sort of bulletin from the manufacturer what might be at risk. Unfortunately, when we get a bulletin like this, and I think here is January 2024. This was a little while ago, so maybe we could have had more inquiries back then, and I think that's one of the learning lessons here is once we get any bulletin like this, let's know the lead time right away associated with it, because we could have maybe had a little bit earlier action on this, but it took us a while to figure out, number one, is this part of the program parts, because we do have a long-term program with Siemens for maintenance as well, and the buckets themselves are part of the program part, but unfortunately the disc that's underneath it that it bolts to is not, and so that was another thing that we had to kind of dig through and figure out exactly what's covered in that long-term program as well. But your point is well taken, and it's something that there are other things that we should probably be in communications with Siemens about to see if there's an ability to create a little bit more understanding around other things that we might want to keep on our radar from a long lead time perspective.
Because to me, when you think like from a cash reserve standpoint, it's great to have the cash, but if
No,
you
I
don't
know.
buy anything,
I know.
or if it,
Can't get it in. Yeah, right.
and not everything, but there's certain things that we know are going to be.
Yeah. This is not really a wear item, though. I mean, this is something that you would expect to kind of last a long, long, long time. It's just that, due to the, again, those temperature exposures, you now get metallurgical changes within the structures that are holding. It's like a Christmas tree, essentially, is the notches on this blade that slide in there. And so they're concerned about those allowing and getting brittle and allowing that blade to propagate and come loose there. So,
Yeah,
sorry.
okay. No, all good. To add to it, like you said, this did come out some time ago. We've had several discussions with Siemens along the way, but that lead time jumped considerably in the past 6-7 months. And there's a lot of people trying to purchase gas turbines right now as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Components, of my understanding, the additional demand has just that lead time really, really ballooned. So
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's
From a
additional information.
Siemens monitoring standpoint, so we have systems the SCADA systems and other stuff that analyzes data coming off the generators. Does any of that flow back to Siemens on a regular basis
Yeah.
that they can, hey,
That-
you're.
That's why we have a probability. That's why we have a 25% for one and a 60 for other. They're not in different generators. I mean, we bought them at the same time.
Mhm.
It's really our information, I think, that allowed them to give us
Yeah.
that probability
Yeah.
assessment.
So every day there's data being sent to Siemens and
Is there?
review it, and they'll give us, from day to day, if they see little things, let us know, but every quarter we get a full quarterly review of things they saw, maybe little adjustments, maybe you needed clean this up or whatnot, so,
Perfect.
so yeah,
That's
that is
great.
the goal.
That's good. Thank you.
Putting these together, I think you mentioned, well, there's a lot of these that are selling, so the lead time's getting worse.
Yes.
But I bet the lead time on 1 and 3 aren't as bad as 2, because the 2 is the one that's.
Right, you also have this bulletin out there, so you have the existing fleet dealing with it, and then you have new stuff being built, and so it's all taking manufacturing time.
Disc 1 and disc 3 might be
Yeah.
22 weeks.
Yeah, it could be.
2 is the one that's
Yeah.
has an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are expensive parts.
They are.
What do you do?
They are.
Expensive machines.
Anything else? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Thanks, Grant. All right, next item under the regular agenda, 6B, it has to do with Scenic Shores Pump Station Rehabilitation. I think Brian Ritchie's here to walk us through this one. And also, you'll stay up for the next one.
Okay.
We changed the order on you. I don't know if you
Okay.
saw that. Yeah, yes.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So as Dave mentioned, this is for Scenic Shores Pump Station Rehab. So this one has been under design and planned for a while. The original design of this was combined with our South Side Pump Station rehabilitation. This one is a smaller booster station out there in the hills, Nectar Hills area, along 147. So this is for a reconstruction of the station where we have had several issues in the last, I'd say, number of years now. We've had pumps rebuilt, we've had motors rebuilt. The original station was built in the late 70s. There were some modifications in the early 90s, but it has an old in-ground hydropneumatic tank. It's really just getting pressurized from the bladder of the tank itself, and it's kind of an older style station that doesn't allow us to provide much other than boosting some pressure. So with this project, we wanted to tackle the ability to at least provide some fire flow capability, which is the implementation of this design, is to create some more redundancy with it, but also some more capacity with it as well. So throughout the design process, there were a number of things considered. Looking at how we split this up, there's one pressure district, which is effectively two separate areas that were factored into it. One has the improvements that were done in the late 90s, early 2000s, that has a little bit of a different pressure zone than what the original station had. So that was also factored into this. So it's a small station, but has a lot of complexity to it that really was never factored in with the original pumps that are there. Hence the issues we've been having with the design, or with the station in terms of operation. So this project was bid out, and we originally only received one bid. Now, looking back, the timing of that bid appeared to come across similar time frame to some SRF projects that were being bid out. So it was not a very competitive bidding process with the one bid we got. That original bid was $1.5 million, and we kind of went back to the drawing board and said, okay, this is not going to work, right? Our budget for this project is $900,000. That just doesn't feel right, especially only having the one bid. So what we did is went back, talked to a few contractors, looked at our schedule and said, what if we open this schedule up? It's only boosting pressure. The demand is not very high. There's a total of 50 plus customers that it's serving in terms of the pressure it's boosting it for. So we said, okay, let's open this up. We can still do this in the summertime, just limiting the amount of shutdowns for it. And in doing so, as you can see, we did receive, after we rebid it, 4 very competitive bids, much closer to our numbers. Still not obviously where we wanted it to be, but felt that this would be the right step into moving forward with it. So we evaluated the 2 top bids, Lee Contracting and Earhart. Lee Contracting had originally proposed a schedule that wasn't in line with what we were thinking, or what we were hoping for. They were looking to push this out into 2028. because we, again, wanted to open this up. Whereas Earhart said, yeah, we can do this in the spring of 27. They had been in talks with our engineer, Brian Newhoff, as to potential cost-saving opportunities. They recently just did work at water treatment plant for the chemical storage building. In their list of subcontractors was our contractors that we worked with before and are comfortable with, have a good working relationship with. So really, it kind of came down to it's only a difference of roughly 1%. Going with the contractor we're more comfortable working with, have a good relationship with, again, seeing those cost-saving opportunities. So this is a recommendation for approval for a contract with Earhart Construction for $1,106,843 with a contingency of $100,000. And this is also asking for a budget amendment. As I mentioned, the originally approved was $900,000. So a budget amendment bringing the total up to $1.4 million. And then again, this is covering a little bit extra for some additional engineering services that are coming with this, and the overall project cost for any unforeseen conditions for the construction of the project.
So,
Go ahead.
Brian, you held this bid on August 4, like a week ago then?
That's when we received bids, sorry.
Okay, you started, like, you've been communicating with these companies for
Yeah, we
months and
originally
everything.
bid this back in April, and then
When you got the one.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, the original. Then we rebid it back in, basically beginning of July for these bids that we just received.
So there's been thorough discussions about scope and all that.
There has, and that was one thing we talked about, right? Do we try to scale this back? What does that look like? You know, what are improvements that we're really getting from that if we do that? Because that's part of the problem is these pumps are not operating the way they should be. So with the work that's needing to be done with the existing tank, it's requiring an addition to the building as well. So there's critical due permits that have to come into hand with that. So there's just to scale it back would really just be, okay, let's just replace these pumps, but then we're coming back to this thing again like we have been. So yeah, that again, all those things were discussed.
What is the number of services that are supported by this
I think it's 56 if I remember correctly. Yes,
total?
in total.
There's zones, two pressure zones.
Correct. Currently, it's one pressure zone. It's going to be treated separately because one has 8-inch water main that's feeding it, and the range of elevation is a lot tighter than where it is to the south, which is actually the original portion of the pressure district, which has 6-inch main and has a much wider gap of elevation change.
And our forecast in the future about additional demand, not a lot.
If there's any, it's not going to be much. I mean, this is out there in Scenic Shores area. There's not much area of developed property out there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Certainly's original schedule that means your decider.
Yes. So their original was following essentially the end dates that we gave them as far as putting this out there to 2028, just to see if it was a matter of contractor availability. So the way we viewed that was that they were misunderstanding what we were asking for, which was tell us what your schedule is. Now, when we did talk to them, they said, yes, we can do this. One other concerning thing that came from that, though, was that they mentioned, well, we can start this project as early as this fall. And we pointed out to them that wouldn't be possible because you wouldn't have all your materials in hand. We know that the pumps have a 16-week lead time, so really don't want anything started before that. So that, again, not to say that they couldn't do it. Another factor that was a little concerning is that they listed themselves as a sub for every facet of the project, which not to say that they can't do it, but again, just not having a level of comfortability with a project to this complexity, we felt it was right to just go with, again, contractor that we are comfortable working with that understands the project.
This is Lee's wheelhouse, from my understanding, this type of stuff. So I'm curious.
Okay.
Would the board like to make a motion to approve this contract and the accompanying budget amendment?
I move that we accept the recommendation from the Scenic Shores Pump Station Rehabilitation and the adjustment to the capital budget in the amount requested.
Second.
Motion by Lilly, second by Maloof. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
It's gonna be pretty too, right?
What's that?
Pretty, it's gonna be pretty.
Scenic.
So Brian's gonna stay up there for what's listed here as item D, actually. I don't know that, they got updated, but I think you have an old one. So, sorry, we have, item 6D, the south side, tank repairs. While Brian's up there, we'll just continue on with that.
Yes, this looks pretty straightforward. Southside tank repairs, we are trying to do this work in line with the Southside pump station rehabilitation, which is gonna be kicking off here in about a month. So with that work, the tank is coming offline, and there were some recommended repairs from when we did the inspection in 2024, or sorry, spring of 25. And the budget for the project was originally 100,000, was not carried fully over. Only the 70,000 that was outlined in the fiscal year budget was pulled over. That's the 70,000. So this is just a simple request for bringing that additional 30,000 for a budget amendment to be approved. There is a contractor that's currently in the process of going through contract approval with our city attorney, and that's with Seven Brothers for $61,000. So that's being handled. Again, this is just a request for a budget amendment to bring the budget for the project to $100,000.
What we have to do is sort of indicating in our budget a cash flow expectation for the year versus a total budget yet appropriation.
Any questions for Brian? Could we have a motion on the request?
Motion to approve the recommendation as stated for the local generation resources evaluation.
Actually, no, we're on the, sorry, Southside tank repairs, I'm sorry.
We jumped
Yeah,
up.
Oh, you know what? I just opened this to look at.
Yeah.
The wrong one. Sorry. Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Motion to approve the recommendation as stated for the Southside tank repairs capital budget.
Thanks, Carol.
Support.
Motion by Maloof, supported by Lynn. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's approved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. All right, now, the last one here we want to do is the item related to the owner's engineer for local generation resource evaluation and contracting. Coming up is Alex Craigmile. Thank you. Last time, we had a really good discussion with the board at study session, giving you an update of where we were in our local generation evaluation for both solar and storage, battery energy storage, and how the evaluation was showing that the battery energy storage stack of value streams that come from building a battery storage system was appearing to significantly outweigh the costs under a number of scenarios. And so that things look good in moving forward there, but there were three, I'll call it kind of parallel paths that were underway. One was the continued evaluation of the economics of the battery storage system going forward. Another was an actual contract with the entity that had bid on the battery storage system at Industrial Substation, and that's Prism Power rather. And so that contract negotiation is going on. And then the third one is really what we're here today to discuss. And that is to get on board with us some owner's engineering support to help us both finalize the evaluation, but also to help us in the last stages of contract negotiation, and then carry through for some other things that Alex is going to outline in a lot more detail to the 5 areas of effort that the owner's engineer would support, as well as what we got in for proposals and why we're selecting who we are. So Alex, I'll turn over to you for all that.
Thanks, Dave. That's a great introduction. So kind of along these parallel paths back in July, we got to a point where it was comfortable in proceeding in a direction where it was a good timing to start looking at owner's engineers. We worked with a few other entities around that have done kind of some of these projects that are having these projects ongoing to kind of survey potential firms out there that have done owner's engineer for specifically BESS projects and solar projects. We kind of came up with a list of 5 through some assistance with MPPA and others. So we put together an RFP for the whole owner's engineering package. So as Dave mentioned, 5 different portions of that kind of focuses on the procurement side of it, construction observation, performance and validation, material testing, and a lot of the QA/QC on the backside of what this build would look like. So we went out to 5 firms. We got 4 back for proposals, a wide variety in estimated hours and budget costs. And a lot of that comes with when you're asking for an owner's engineer that's strictly kind of there to assist you with a project that you don't have yet defined or under contract. You don't really know how many reviews. So we made some assumptions about length of the project. They said that they would be complete by the end of next year. And some of those, and kind of each firm had some different opinions about how that would look. So we looked at that, but we more focused on what are their rates, because that's going to be a driver. We can't really define exactly how many reviews or how many submittals Prism is going to have, at least at this stage. But that will kind of help guide us with that past experience in these kind of projects, especially with battery projects being on the newer side, so there's not as much of that experience out there. So just trying to get some of that experience in there. Resource availability, obviously, to be able to meet this aggressive schedule. Review time for those kind of reviews and the different periods of that. And then also kind of where are those resources coming from in correlation to it. You know, we're not planning necessarily on full-time inspection. Prism's going to be providing some form of quality testing on their side. It's more of an assurance on our side that we're getting that product back. So there's a little bit of a advantage to having them close to home, so to speak. So when we looked at that, Commonwealth and HDR kind of floated to the top in terms of resource availability, past experience in kind of similar projects, both of them being Michigan primarily based. What separated us between the two was Commonwealth has a little bit quicker turnaround on reviews. They didn't kind of, some of the higher end stretch out to 4-week review potentially by HDR. The majority of Commonwealth staff that's going to be associated with this is coming out of their Jackson office area. So they have proximity. They have more past experience on best projects than the other firms. They're not all owner's engineer on that standpoint. They're actually more on the design side, which when we were evaluating that, it's kind of almost a benefit because there's more of a driver for them to be involved in their accuracy of what they're doing because they're directly tied to the finished product. So that kind of helped us with weighing those parts, which kind of leads us to the recommendation, and the way we're looking at it now is to have a PO for $15,000 to help us with the assistance of evaluating the other 2 parts of that to determine whether it's kind of a go recommendation for the overall project. And then what we would come back with is a bigger ask for Prism cost, establishing a capital budget, and then an overall contract recommendation with the engineer to service as the owner's engineer for the.
So this purchase order gets us started with them. We'll continue to work out the final contractual relationship with them going into the actual services that would post-date getting Prism on board with us. If you desire to move forward with Prism in September, we'll also move forward with Commonwealth in these remaining aspects of their owner's engineering services. But it also allows us to get them on board immediately so that we can start having them review some of the contract terms as well as the equipment that's being proposed, and also just advise us again on some of the value streams that we're looking at and make sure that we're not missing anything there.
If you could sort of describe why the difference, quite a bit of difference in the hours that they project. I'm not quite sure I understand that.
So with the owner's engineer being directly tied to a couple of things. One being the number of reviews and submittals that are returned from Prism. Without having a contract in place with Prism, we can't really give them a defined structure of what that's going to look like. So when we asked, we tried to make some general statements to get more of a consistent apples to apples. So in past recommendations that we've made to the board for like construction services, when we're in the design stage, we would say assume 12 weeks of construction at 40 hours, so you get more of an apples to apples comparison. And then on the back end, when we really define that, we would kind of bring it back. In this situation, we had those conversations, but we weren't clear enough, and they made some assumptions about, for instance, a 20, a 50, an 80, 100% plan review versus a 20 and 80 and 100% plan review based off of their individual experience on similar kind of projects. And so you get a lot of variety.
So
And then
HDR put
Yes.
more into that.
So the way I would look at it is Commonwealth was more aggressive in the minimal amount of effort it would take to accomplish that. HDR was as conservative. This is the worst case scenario of what it's going to cost to do all the things.
And then remember when and I know you're not gonna remember the value stack, but the cost stack from the PowerPoint presentation that we gave last time, I think had a number that we had said of less than 350,000 for the owner's engineering services. So we're kind of looking at that $350,000 ballpark, which kind of puts it a little bit higher than what we had in this budget estimate from Commonwealth. So we have a little bit of room maybe in terms of what we're looking at on the cost stack, but still, we're trying to get something that creates apples to apples. Didn't get responded to that way, but, we're not sure exactly until we get to the final point with Prism, just how much of a burden their review process is going to put on the owner's engineer yet.
And one of the bigger drivers that separates HDR to be the largest is we assumed part-time inspection. So we said about 8 to 10 site visits. Everybody else gave us about 8 to 10 site visits. They gave us full-time inspection. So that's about 150,000 right there of just difference between that. Rate-wise, they're very comparable. They're within a couple dollars an hour by structure.
What you don't want to have is that they knew something about Prism that we don't.
Yeah.
That's why they want to.
Yeah, neither one of them had project
I
experience.
think if we get the inspections that we need, then that's what's important.
Yeah. I think the other thing is, again, and this was maybe brought out a little bit in the discussions last meeting as well, is that the owner's engineer, we did share with them some of the information relative to the Prism proposal, especially the technology, and received some solid, good responses from them in terms of that being a good technology choice. Yeah.
So, question, going to ask you to reflect back on the digester.
Yeah.
What evolved there. Is there anything in these deliverables, the diagrams, so on and so forth, that define requirements or do something that would either cause or prevent a problem like we had with the digester?
No, I don't see that being the case. The other thing is, different from the digester too, is that this owner's engineer does not have any design responsibility at all. They are really just an extension of our staff. They're providing some additional expertise to us to help us in evaluating, which is a full wrap proposal from Prism. Prism's going to do. That's why their partners are Atwell for the engineering, and then Newkirk for like the electrical construction side of that battery storage system. Here, there's really no responsibility for Commonwealth to do anything from a design perspective. So it doesn't create sort of anything that's going on there that way.
Are these the three guys? When you did the presentation.
Number two, two principals that have a lot of experience that come from different either developer side or I think additional engineering side at Prism. Commonwealth is not this. That's Prism. Commonwealth's been around for decades and decades and decades, and they've been in the power generation area for a long time. Working on different types of power generation projects and distribution projects as well. So
we have a motion on this request.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the recommendation for the owner's engineer for local generation resources evaluation with Commonwealth Associates proposal.
Support. Motion by Lilly, supported by Lynn. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's passed. Thank you, Alex.
So item 7 is a request to go into closed session, and I'll outline that just in a moment, but I'm also going to mention that going into closed session, there is no action to follow that is expected. I'm just going to go ahead and say I really don't have a lot from it for those that are listening at home. Communications from the general manager tonight really is just to outline our next meeting being our study session on the 24th of this month. We have some things that we're teeing up for you for that meeting. We do have some proposed actually outline of our handbook, our employee handbook, because we've actually moved recently. The city's adopted a handbook that's just for city employees, and we used to have a joint handbook. So we're actually looking at a BPW handbook and getting prepared to bring that to you for action. So we want to bring that to a study session first. Looking at a Holland City Fiber recap for you, just to give you an update of how everything kind of came together there. A little bit of information on the Energy Assistance Fund program development, which again, we pivoted and pulling that back from the state, creating our own project this year. So we'll have some updates for you on that, as well as the Energy Waste Reduction Program results. And that's for the 24th of this month. That's the only thing I really wanted to mention. I'm still looking at dates for strategic planning at this point, trying to nail down whether there's an opportunity for our facilitator to come back into town. So stay tuned on that. But those are my only comments for today as well. Just wanted those that were listening at home maybe to hear that before we go into closed session, because there won't be really any TV coverage after that at all.
Thank you, Dave. Could
Yeah.
we ask the board, is there any communications from the board
Sure.
for closed session?
You covered that.
Yeah.
All right.
Strategic plan.
So with that, again, the closed session request tonight under item 7 is to go into closed session to review a written legal opinion with the city attorney who is present today. And so that is the reason for the closed session.
I'd like to make a recommendation that we go into closed session.
That's a motion by Lily, supported by Maloof. Janet?
Yes. Thompson?
Yes.
Maloof?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yes.
Lily?
Yes.
Ingers?
Yes.
We're in closed session.
All right. Thank you.